Welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thanks for joining me for another episode of Strategy Mob. Today I have two awesome guests. I have Mr. Ian Cruickshank and Stephen Granger, both joining me to jam today. Hey guys, thanks for taking the time to hang with me.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Here's how I think we should kind of start off our conversation today. For everybody out there that's watching and listening and kind of don't know, kind of what your guys' background story is or kind of how you guys got started in the industry, I think a couple origin stories are just best way to start us off. So let's go ahead and start off with you, Stephen. How did you get started into this crazy business we call the automotive industry?
Yeah. So I've been in the space for a little over 16 years now. Started selling Volkswagens and Audis. Before that, I was a recruiter, had my own recruiting agency. The .com bubble burst, and nobody really needed a recruiter anymore. And I was super passionate about Audis and Volkswagens. And my wife at the time was like, why don't you go sell cars? So I went to the local Audi store, drove up in my convertible TT. My boss later told me, dude, you had the job. You drove up in a TT and you had a resume. Like, we don't see that. Did that for about a year, and it was the hardest job I've ever had in my life. Like, selling cars is brutal, and it taught me a ton of valuable lessons just about selling and just people, skills, and life, really. And then I went to work for a couple different companies selling digital advertising, Cars.com, Auto Trader. At the time, I worked at the magazine. That's how long ago that was. And then I got recruited by this little company that was just starting to go dealer facing. May have heard of them, called Carfax. When I started there were, I think, 12 of us talking to car dealers. I was the first person in the Southwest United States dealing at the dealer group level. So anybody from 4 to 20 stores. Like I said, when I started, we all fit in one little conference room in the corporate office. By the time I left 11 years later, we had to rent an entire hotel to put the dealer-facing staff. Went through different roles there, mainly focused on large dealer group account management. Was a trainer for a period of time. After leaving that, went to work for a couple different startups in the auto space, trying to help them launch their product, get it out to dealer groups. Went to work in a dealer group, a 7-store group, as the BDC Internet Director, which was, again, really helpful. As a vendor, taught me a lot about how bad vendors are and made me think, like, was I like that person? Right. And just the value of dealer management, realizing, I would get to the store at 7 a.m. and leave 10 at night sometimes. Right. And I didn't mind meeting with vendors if they brought value and actually left with something that I could take and make my job better and make my team better. It was the people that would come in and just kind of shoot the shit for 30 minutes. And I'd be like, this is cool. I appreciate it. But now I leave at 10:30, right? Like, so it was really helpful for me from the vendor side to think, okay, how am I helping a dealer when I'm sitting in front of them? What am I bringing as value, right? During all that time at Carfax, and then after leaving Carfax and working at the dealership, I kept seeing kind of an issue that was dealers were facing, and no one was really coming up with much of a solution for it. And that's where the idea for my current company, RecallRabbit, came from. We're a startup in Austin, Texas, helping dealers connect to solve recall issues on their used inventory, and been doing it now. RecallRabbit's been around about a little over a year. I've just been doing, it's kind of ironic. I went full time in January. On paper, not the most ideal time to go full time on your startup right before a world pandemic. But we've actually seen some really good success, and it's been really exciting for me to see not just that we're growing, but the tool that we're providing actually really does help dealers, and especially right at this time. And that's been a really cool thing to see.
Yeah, it may not be the best time to go full into it, but hey, what a perfect time to to be in the industry with a great product. I will have to say, and I'm going to give you this award, Stephen. I don't know if anybody's given this to you yet. I'm going to give you the award for like the coolest logo of a
thank you.
vendor I've met so far. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like this like Evil Dead looking rabbit with like these two wrenches. And I'm just gonna say you have to send me one of those shirts. I saw the logo. I want to give you props for that. I apologize. I digress. Anyways, Ian, well, you're no stranger to this industry. You've been around the block a few times. Let's get that origin story that is Ian Cruickshank.
Yeah, for sure. So, for me, my start into, I guess, industry and work was a little less, a little less normal. My first career was actually as a ski pro. I came out west after doing my undergraduate degree in business and marketing and HR, and I decided I wanted to be a really like badass ski pro. So I decided to go to Whistler and spent time on the mountain there. And I got distracted a little bit and ended up staying there for about 3 years. So that was a lot of fun, back and forth between Australia, teaching skiing at a place called Mount Hotham, and teaching skiing at Whistler Mountain and supervising the private lessons. And really, it was my first kind of step into management and handling a big budget. Handled about 120 ski pros under my supervision and about a $6 million budget. So it was, a real job, kind of camouflaged as a ski bum. So that was a ton of fun.
You were a ski bum. Let's just admit it. Come on.
Let's be clear. And I skied 250 days a year, and then the rest of the time I was surfing.
That by definition is a ski bum.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad situation. Last year I skied once. This year I was supposed to go skiing late March.
Oh, what bad timing!
It didn't happen so much. So basically when I was up at a ski hill, I decided, I really wanted to make use of my degree. And a friend of mine who actually worked for me in the ski school introduced me to a few folks in radio to get into advertising sales. Mostly because I looked at working agency side and sort of the more typical kind of cassette, OMD, the bigger agency folks. When you enter into that environment, unfortunately, you can't really earn enough to pay off the debt you incur as a ski pro. So that didn't really work too well. So I decided to go the sales route, and really, enjoyed that aspect. Similar to you, Stephen, learning pretty quickly that the sales route is tough. Some of my early customers, one of my favorites was a Ford store, actually in the valley between Vancouver and Whistler, a place called Sea to Sky Ford, aptly named. And I remember one occasion when the GM of the location was telling his sales team members that they had it easy because at least someone came into the location with the intention to buy a car. No one ever calls a radio rep and says, "Hey, I want to buy some radio." We're like the ugly stepchild of traditional media. So it was a good place to cut your teeth and learn the sales business and get into that. But fairly quickly, having got past working in rural markets, got into the city and was selling Jack FM radio, I got really excited about digital. Really excited about the different opportunities that we had there. And of course, at the same time, wanted to expand my capabilities and wanted to take on a managerial role. And I got approached by the folks at Pacific Newspaper Group, which is part of Post Media now. And it was to go over and help them with their management, but also to help them with their digital transition. So I spent about 3 years at Post Media, helping them shift their team from being traditional salespeople to being digital, or true-digital as they were calling it back then, salespeople. And that was quite an experience. My mentor and I, a fellow who had been there for a little while, we would talk over coffee that we were trying to save the newspaper business. And it was a process, and we had a lot of success, frankly. But at the same time, we all have seen the size of newspaper companies now, and seeing the $250 million company go down to about a maybe $30 million company, that sort of thing at this point in time, was pretty interesting, at least for that part of Post Media. I left that organization to work with a digital pure play, a company called Wishpond, and that was my first sort of startup experience. or first smaller company experience. They were truly a startup. Since then, the companies that I've been working with have been smaller companies, but that have been around for a good long time. Getting into pure autos, because, as a radio rep, you sell multi-vertical. So I spent a lot of time working with autos folks, but working with insurance, working with local retail, working with all sorts of different stuff. Getting into pure auto was with a company called Speed Shift Media, a great company out of New Westminster, near Vancouver here, that provided digital marketing tools or inventory marketing tools for folks like, actually similar to the folks that Stephen has spent some time with. So for Auto Trader, for Cars.com, for Carfax a little bit, for Edmunds, for Jumpstart, we provided dynamic inventory display technology for them. And then we built a network out that enabled agencies and dealers to make use of the same technology. So I spent about 5 years with those folks and really just had a fantastic time. And it's really where, for me, I realized with the help of my then very young son, I've got a 6 and a 9-year-old now, they really got me into cars. I wouldn't have called myself a car guy at that point in time. Their enthusiasm for the fact that Daddy was working with cars was really something that propelled that interest for vehicles themselves. Also, an experience with the Porsche driving experience day at a Mission Raceway at a racetrack.
I've done that before. That'll pretty much make anybody an enthusiast.
The ETS lineup, when it was first launched, blew my and Steve Barker, who was mentioned a little earlier as we were prepping. So shout out to Steve. But he and I got it behind the wheel of every Porsche that was being offered that season, and I was completely hooked. I'm a Volvo driver primarily, and I've driven Volvos probably for the last 5 cars, and that won't change. But the weekender eventually will be that the Targa GT3, that kind of thing, or something along those lines.
It's something along those lines. Yeah, just an extreme monster of a machine. Yeah, that'll be my weekender. Sounds good.
Yeah. We got to have a little fun. First, we got to do some work, and that really brings me to Leadbox. I was approached by a very good friend of mine that I've known for a long time, and a fellow named Rob Barber, who is co-founder of the now combined organization. So he was co-founder of Drive Media that we merged with Leadbox a little while ago. And the organization that we've got today really got me excited about their real use of technology to solve for agency problems. So I would say, in many respects, on the surface, we look like a fairly typical agency that is providing website, digital advertising, and other more typical solutions, as well as a number of technology solutions that we've built along the way, and technology that we use every day to take care of the problems that we need to deal with. So the things that we deal with internally, dealing with inventory marketing, making these things more seamless, dealing with video and creating, I used to create dynamic display ads. Well, now we're into dynamic video, we're into dynamic search, we're into all sorts of different pieces of the puzzle. And there's a real great opportunity to help not only our organization with technology, but to help many others. So it'll be interesting to see over time how our organization evolves. But that's me in autos, and like many of us, I've been bitten by the bug, and I won't be going anywhere anytime soon.
That's what happens to all of us. We all get bit by the bug at some point, right?
Yeah.
Hey guys, all right, let's, what, I want to get into kind of my first question for you guys. I want to kind of start off with just kind of what's the current norm for you. The cool thing is you guys both work in a unique, aspect of the business. Stephen, for yourself on the service and the recall side of the business, which we were kind of talking a little bit off camera, which I think is a great opportunity for dealerships. I mean, when we're talking about, messages and what messages you should be putting out there, and what is, a good reason, for someone to come into the dealership for us to give us an opportunity to reconnect, they may or may not want to do it, but still it's a message that's easily consumable. And then, for yourself, Ian, on the technology side, boy, we've had to rely more on our technology vendors as an industry than we've ever had in the past. So I'd love to hear from both you guys of what your kind of current norm is. Stephen, I'll start with you.
Yeah. So it's been really interesting for me kind of seeing everything that's gone on over the past probably 4 to 6 weeks, right? I've jumped on a lot of industry calls. And it's been fascinating to watch everybody tout about how we're changing the world. And I'm like, I've been doing this for a long time and we've delivered cars to people for a long time. Like, this isn't that different. But the things that I think people are jumping into, right? Like home delivery, will come grab your car, sound really good and are good. And I think when we get through this, our space is going to be so much better than before, just because we've had to and make these changes. But I think the little things that people go, okay, great, we're going to do this. You got to think kind of through, and especially like on the service side, how are you making cars safe for people, right? Like, yeah, it's one thing to say, I'm going to come bring your car back, but 3 techs have worked on it. The porter drove it. Like, how am I protecting the consumer and messaging that? Like, you're probably doing that. And what I've seen on a lot of these calls that I've been on is people talking about that, what services they're using, how they're doing it, and then messaging in that. And I think that's going to be important during this time too. It's not only are we doing the things that we probably should have been doing, like I'll use a name that is not very good in our space that people don't like, the Carvanas of the world, right? Like,
you can use
everybody,
it. I think there's
right?
nothing wrong
Everybody
with it.
could do that and has done that. And I delivered cars at home. But thinking, okay, well, how do I message what's unique about us and what's different about Bob Smith Chevy delivering a car to you than some big corporation somewhere else, or whatever that is, and then walking that through. And like I said, for me on the service side, the fixed ops side, and our business does not do anything with the consumer side of the world. We just connect dealers to fix recalls that they have in their used inventory. But even just being on a lot of the calls that I've seen, people thinking about how do we do this differently. And again, for me, like I said, I started probably not the best time in the world, but like, it's cool for me too to see dealers connecting. Like, we get such a bad rap in our space, and that's one thing that drives me crazy is how some of it's deserved, right? But the dealer space, and it's been cool to see everybody just kind of like, how do we help each other, right? Like, I was on one call and one guy, they were talking about giving toilet paper out because they're like, we have 72 bathrooms in our dealership and we don't need all this, like little stuff like that. And I really think one thing that's cool, and we fit into this, is I think there's also going to be some stuff that comes out of this, how dealers are going to learn from each other and truly help each other down the road, and maybe break down some of that we're all just at it to kill each other. That taking a step back, like, what are you using that's working? How are you using it? And here's some data that we're using, right? Like, there may be some stuff. I was telling a potential investor the other day that I almost feel like this could be a moment like the gig economy, right? Like the change from Uber and what they've done in the world. Like, there may be some partners out there that this may change how dealers work together and come out of this, right?
That's actually a really good point. I mean, I actually know a couple of dealer associations that are in talks right now of actually how they are sharing resources, on almost to the point where also how they're sharing employees and technicians. You know, so I think there's a lot going on out there. There's a lot of conversations. So there's dealerships out there that are doing a lot with a lot less. And that's becoming, you know, that's our current norm. But I have a lot of dealerships that are having the conversations like, is that going to be my new norm? You know, do I really need to have 170 employees at my dealership? You know, I'm operating right now. I mean, I have some dealerships right now, and I hate to say it, but it just is what it is they're actually having some of the most profitable months they've ever had. You know, yes, their revenue's down, you know, 30, 40, 50, 60%, but their expenses are down, you know, 70, 80%. And I have dealerships that are now looking towards the tech side, you know, and going, you know, how can I, you know, kind of rely a little bit more on my tech providers, my tech vendors, and do I need to have so many hands in the pot? Can I process the crap out of this? And for yourself, what are you seeing? Is what's the current norm for you as far as conversations out there?
Yeah, it's interesting. I really like the point, Stephen, about collaboration that you bring up, and Jason echoing that. Even across the vendor side of things, right? I'm close with probably the head of pretty well every organization across the country, and many into the U.S. And one of the things that I've done is made a point of having regular conversations with folks to hear how everyone's doing. What sort of decreases people are seeing, what's happening in the market, what kinds of programs are people releasing, how are we supporting our dealer partners, and that air of support, that air of collaboration, that air of humanity that really comes into play in these instances is really a very nice thing to see. Like you mentioned, Stephen, giving away toilet paper. We've got gabs and gabs and gabs of it. Why wouldn't we pass it out to the market? Actually, for the first time, I was at the grocery store. My wife and I have, she's immune deficient, and so we've been very careful about this situation and taking significant precautions. So we're going to the grocery store maybe once every couple of weeks, and going on a Wednesday is a much better thing than going on a Saturday. So I was in there, and for the first time, I actually saw toilet paper on the shelf. So that was pretty exciting. We were doing okay in that department. No worries.
Seriously, guys, let's take a moment here. Like, would you ever think that seeing toilet paper on a shelf would get you going? Like, come on.
Right? And in your brain, were you like,
everybody?
Were you like, do I grab it? I know we've got some, but
well, that's it. Right? And so left it on the shelf. Right. In my perspective, I did the right thing. I didn't let the pandemic crazy take over. I left it there. But, let's be clear, folks. If we were in the world where bidets were more common, none of us would be concerned. Right. So, there's things to be said about European perspective. But all of those aspects, the way people are supporting each other. One of the things that we decided to do as an organization was to really reflect on what we could do to help our partners, right? So it's a question of offering the different recommendations, offering the different things that you can do. What can we do to support financially in certain ways, but then what can we do more for our dealer partners? A piece that we took on was, okay, well, there's a great program being offered for Ford dealerships or for Ford buyers, effectively. So 3 months no payments, and then 3 months deferred, and that's a great program by Ford Credit, and it was put out as the OEM message. For us, we spend a lot of time creating video and doing interesting stuff for our customers. So we said, well, look, let's do a video, and then at scale, let's personalize it. So we were able to personalize it for all of our dealer partners. So 125 customers, partners along the way that we supported with that video. And then we said, okay, well, in that same air of collaboration, can we do this for all 480 something across the country? Well, yeah, we can, no problem. And we can distribute it with the other 2 certified partners for Ford. So in supporting both of them, or offering our support to both of them, and then to anyone who wasn't, a partner store within the Ford program. So that's, it's about asking yourself, is it toilet paper that you can distribute? Is it a video that you can distribute? Is it team members and exchanging of team members that you can support the situation with? Just what can you in fact do to help on the human side of things?
No, and I think that's what we all kind of have to do right now. And actually, it's an opportunity, right? Like, I mean, we're connecting. We're connecting from vendor to client, from dealership to client, from, you know what, to your point, just human to human. Yeah. Like, just having conversations. I have a list, and I'm sure you guys probably do too. It's just, people that I just, I guess I've always wanted to have more of a regular, relationship with, and it's like, now it's like, I don't feel like I have to just call a dealership with the sole intention to sell them something, but just to do a check-in of like, hey man, how's it going?
Yeah.
You doing all right? Is there anything I can assist with? I mean,
and it being genuine, right?
That's the kicker. And it being genuine.
It's not just like, hey, well, let me tell you. Like, I know for me, I'm literally called like, how are you? I haven't heard from 3 days, and I'm worried because you could be gone, right? Like that's how fast somebody could get sick, and so out of a genuine concern,
I find that I'm spending a lot of time right now just kind of consulting with dealerships and whatever I can, from operations. I never thought that I would have spent this much time researching the chemical properties of sanitization products so that I can better educate, customers. Like I don't sell chemicals, you know what I mean? But it's like, I see a problem with dealerships out there right now saying that they're going to sanitize vehicles, because that's that's a bold thing to say. Like you can't just come out and say, we're going to sanitize it. I watched a dealer group that's one of our clients the other day put out a video, and they're like, every single time a car comes in for service or goes out, we're sanitizing it. And they showed this video of someone literally spraying some chemical into a rag, wiping down the handle, wiping down the steering wheel, wiping down this shift knob. And then that was it. And I was like, dude, that is not sanitizing a vehicle. You can't say this. You're opening yourself up for a big, possibility of even a potential liability issue, right? But with that said, though, look, I actually think that's a good segue into what I think the new norm is going to be. Look, I don't know when it's going to happen. It's going to happen 2 months from now. It's going to happen 2 weeks from now or 3 months from now. The government is going to come out and say, okay, you can pop your head out now. Come out of your cave and go explore a little bit, but that in no way means that things are going to be back to normal. I was talking to a neighbor the other day who takes the train on a regular basis. I said, what are you going to do for transportation? He's like, well, I'm not getting back on a train. So, he was asking me, what's the cheapest lease he can get on a Nissan Sentra? I was like, he's like I'm like $300 a month. And he's like, I'm just going to do that, So like a lot of people are beginning to prepare themselves mentally, for what that new norm is going to look like. And I would love to get, both of your guys' thoughts of, what that new norm looks like. Stephen, I'll start with you, and then Ian, I'll come over to you as well for the same question. Stephen?
It's funny. I was watching Bloomberg yesterday, and they were talking with someone about that, and specifically like ride sharing. Yeah. Like, how is this going to affect that? Are people going to be willing to get in a car with a stranger? And how will that affect the auto space, right? Like, because all of a sudden, all those people that have been like, I'm not going to buy a car, I'll just take Uber every day. Like, to your point, Jason, maybe $300 a month isn't that bad for safety's
I'm thinking
sake,
even
right?
when I travel. I'm sure you're probably the same too. Whenever we travel, or even whenever we travel, like I don't rent a car. Like I just logistically, it just is a pain in the ass. I will just go in there. I'll Uber the whole time. And even when I do rent a car, I don't even rent a car from Hertz. I do Turo. I love doing Turo. Like I love driving other people's vehicles. But now I'm like, I'm not going to do that anymore. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, continue.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I know for me, and I don't know how you guys, like I get so focused on what my world is and what I'm dealing with, that hearing other people in the kind of in the space has been interesting, because it's just, again, what is going to be the new norm? How are dealers going to face customer, right? Because once you do open the tap, imagine having a complete service area filled with people, like, right? And to your point, my father-in-law was an attorney for a lot of local car dealers, and he used to joke about, how bad they would get sued for anything, right? Like the minorest little detail. Oh, I'm going to sue the dealer because he's got a big name on the building. Like I was thinking about that earlier, Jason. We were talking about saying you're sanitizing cars, right? Like, it's going to be scary, but I think we'll get through it. It's just, I think it's done a lot for process. I think it's been, I think it was one of your earlier podcasts I was watching, Jason, where you talked about, we've kind of been through this before in 2008. Like, we'll get through it again, and we have short-term memories, but I think it's going to force people to be better. And I think that's what came out of I was right in the thick of it in 2008. Like, it's crappy to say, but we got rid of a lot of dealers that probably had shouldn't have been in the space anymore, right? And I know that's terrible to say, but like it really made the dealer space better, more customer focused, force people to be more digitally oriented. And I think a lot of that's going to kind of, this is that next kick in the pants for people. It's like, okay, I've been hearing forever. I got to really be focused on digital. I got to use technology better. But I think also this has done something, and you touched on it. I think it's made people take a step back and not, it's been easy for the past couple of years. Easy is not the right word because there's nothing easy about selling cars. I don't want to say that.
No. Look, that's
but
actually a good point.
Easier,
We've had double-digit gains, like quarter after quarter after quarter for like the last 4 years straight. I mean, you've been able to, like, as an industry, we've been able to half-ass our way through operations and marketing and still be profitable. I hate to say it, but not for everybody. But I'm just saying, as the general for the industry, that's been the case.
And so I think it is forcing people to really look like, is this vendor helping me? How is it helping me? Not just monetarily, right? Because there's other aspects about dealing with a vendor that can be helped, right? Like Ian was talking about, like, are they working together and doing stuff beyond the pale that I'm not paying them for, but it really is helping me? As well as just the dealers, like, one of the things that I was super adamant about with starting our company is providing something that there was a clear ROI and a dealer could say, yes, it makes money. Because I see so many vendors in our space, and I don't want to get off soapbox bad vendors, but like, and I don't want that to come across because there are a lot of great vendors, but like that think they're smarter than car dealers, and I'm going to create this cool technology and it's going to help this silly car dealer, right? And at the end of the day, it doesn't help them sell more cars, doesn't drive more traffic, doesn't really do anything. And I think this is also kind of a cleansing of that, right? Like,
no, I'm with you. I think the days of perceived value is gone out the window. And, I think when we come back into this new norm, for our industry in general, we put a lot of stuff on pause, right? Pretty much anything we could put on pause, we put on pause. Yep. And I think that's going to take time, that's going to allow us the time to look at the vendors that we're working with and the technology that we're using and going, was there just simply a perceived value or was there real value? Do I turn this vendor back on?
Yeah. It's also helping us on this side of the fence, right? To really look inwardly and go, okay, do I have way too many people out on the street? Right? Like I used to handle a large dealer group at Carfax. And it's really funny because one time he's like, you guys don't give me the same kind of stuff that another vendor does. They're taking us to the Super Bowl and putting us in a suite. And I was like, okay, let's take a step back and think about that.
Yeah.
If you pay me what you pay them, I'll take you to Paris once a quarter, dude. Like, they're right. Like, I think it's also forcing us to look at our products. How is it really working? Is this a time that I can tweak, make things better, and really provide a better value that I don't get on the chopping block, right? That when that dealer's having that conversation, is this tool helpful for me? How are they helping? It's making us better too. And I've seen that on a lot of the calls. Like you mentioned earlier, I think it was Ian, like I was on a call with AutoTrader and Cars.com, like senior leadership. And I was like, okay, I'm worried that like space-time continuum's about to like implode here. And they were positive about each other and helping. I was like, wow, this really is strange times.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and look, as you go through that, Stephen, there's a lot of different thoughts that I've got relative to, new normal. And it's, it's a funny thing that word normal in and of itself is kind of misplaced in so many respects. Is it's normal. And, we talk about it with our kids, right? Different is totally great. Right. And, the new normal, what's going to be different when we come out the other side and for how long, right? You talk about, 2008 and, there was some changes immediately after, and there were some changes in the market. There were some changes in the players, but how quickly did things, fall into place in that different reality? And so, same sort of thing as we come out of this, how quickly will things fall into place in this different reality?
That's actually a really good point, Ian. Actually, because I wonder, like, what's the difference between kind of 2008 and now? For the recession, it was more economics, right? So, I think everyone coming off it was like, well, okay, if I buy the car right now and I lose my job next month, do I get to keep it?
Do I have money in my pocket, right? Where now
Yeah, it's more of a social thing, right?
Pocket, what else is in my pocket with my keys? What germs are hanging out there on the key that the guy just gave back to me, or the clerk just gave back to me? And it's like, okay, well, this is great. These are things I need to be concerned about. Frankly, as much as I travel previously, like I've been in my home office now for a lot longer than I normally stay. My family's loving it. I'm loving spending the time with them. But realistically, every other week I would typically be on a plane. Now, I have the stuff in my bag to wash my hands. I've got my hand sanitizer here. I'm always taking these precautions. I don't touch doors with my hands. Give me a break. Like, that's never going to happen. I elbow the handicap button. I'm already carrying myself in a way that is very cautious, because frankly, I think in our business, in our roles, we can't afford to take a sick day, right? So now, you bring it into, okay, am I going to jump in an Uber? Am I going to do this and that? Well, frankly, I probably still am, because I'm already taking significant precautions and being careful, and I'm not like sucking my thumb after I get out of the car and that kind of thing, right? So we're being really careful in that regard. The conversation around process and how that's improving, we've been having a lot of conversations about digital retailing and frankly, I see it a lot as a misnomer. I think people think digital retailing is synonymous with e-commerce. To me, e-commerce is an actual transaction online. Digital retailing can be all the things that precede it and a transaction online.
Yeah, it's more like a process.
Yeah, exactly. And the process, depending on where you're from, is going to affect we're going to need to make more and more changes. And it was interesting. I was chatting with a senior team member at an OEM earlier this week, and we were looking at the list that I perceive to be kind of the 7-8 steps towards a transaction, towards the completion of a transaction. And we just need to, make sure that we can get through the first 4, let alone the last 4, where we're doing paper and we're delivering the vehicle. Like, we need to make sure that a consumer can actually get the final price and actually know what am I going to pay for this vehicle once I get there? What accessories am I going to put on? What's that going to cost me? What's financing going to actually cost me? As opposed to thinking, okay, well, we need to get, the full paper done. We need to have that ready, and we need to deliver it. What happens to delivery when organizations, our dealer partners aren't set up to deliver, how many more people is it going to take to deliver all of these vehicles that are, maybe as far as 100 kilometers away, right? So, that comes into a reality check when you think, okay,
Real quick, sorry to interrupt, but have you heard about this? Because I haven't. I just heard about this morning. Have you heard about these third-party delivery companies now popping up?
Yeah. Interesting.
Where it's like we will handle and take on the liability and responsibility of delivering the vehicle, for you, because a lot of provinces and a lot of states have kind of opened up to as far as like how documentation can be signed versus wet sign versus digital sign. I've all of a sudden I got hit with a couple people this morning on my DM saying, "Hey Jason, we're now offering delivery services for dealerships. I'd love to chat with you about it." It's an idea. I didn't mean to jump in there. I just thought it's something new, right?
No worries, Jason. So many things are going to come out of this reality, right? And that's the kicker. You're going to have all of these changes that are going to occur. Some are going to stick. Some are just going to be around for this period. Some are going to continue to evolve as we go through into the different reality that's on the other side.
It's funny. I worked at a Mercedes store a couple of years ago for a brief time, and they used a company, and all of a sudden I just started seeing them on a bunch of these calls. And what's interesting is now they're using Lyft to go grab, and I was like, how does that make me feel better as a customer? And they tout it like big, like, we have Lyft drivers that come and get your car. I'm like, I'm not sure that's going to last.
Yeah.
You might read to think that. Yeah.
But I think the cool part is that what's going on in the industry is that we're all having to take a look at our process. I don't think I haven't personally seen a dealership yet that I think's got it 100%. I'm finding that there are some dealerships that were maybe a little better prepared, for this than others. I was talking to a group the other day, 9 rooftops, and, for the last 2 years, they've been a one-price dealership. That's it. It's just one price, nothing else. New cars, used cars, they constantly are changing the prices. But the fact that there was that there hasn't been negotiations, and there's not ever going to be negotiations, that process kind of, leading into this online is more simple, because one of the biggest elements, of purchasing a vehicle was the negotiation of the price, and they've totally removed that. They actually have had it removed for 2 years. So now them going on to a full online, they already seem to be kind of ahead. But I think everyone has to sit there and kind of question, what is the process? What does the customer want? I think what it is like, and I keep pushing this, is that as an industry, we want to hold on to the control. I mean, come on, guys. Do you think we're a bunch of ego-driven control freaks?
That's the test drive thing. Well, this person did a test drive at another store. No. You have to do the test drive. You have to ride along with them to make sure they're going to buy that car. Frankly, my best experience with test drives has been, here, Ian, take the car, bring it back tomorrow. Right? I'm still driving the last one that I did that with. Right?
Well, mine too. In fact, actually, the Armada that I'm driving right now was exactly that way. I went in there, they're like, "You like that one?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm thinking about that one, but it's big, it's the biggest SUV we've ever owned as a family. It's huge, And I was like, "Do you mind if I take it for a longer drive?" He's like, "Yeah, take it for the weekend."
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, And then I completed the transaction. I would say 80% of the transaction was done over text message. Because everyone knows that you call me, I'm probably not going to answer because I'm on a podcast like this or doing something else. But the dealership was willing to craft or to kind of change their process ever so slightly to match my needs. They weren't saying, no, I have to be this, I got to go through this step and this step and this step, and there's no variation to it whatsoever. You have to follow it my way. And I'm thinking that's kind of the biggest fundamental change for most dealerships. And I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel that same way?
We used to talk about it actually in media. So when I was working in the digital world and trying to help media companies understand digital, and that they literally had to be in every medium, because the consumer wants to consume the media in the medium they choose. They want to either snack on Twitter, they either want to, look at it on the web, they want to get a physical copy of the newspaper or whatever it is. Same thing with consumers. They're going to want to be in whatever part of the process that they can. And this idea of making the transaction an omni-channel thing where you can start here, pick it up there, take it back home, continue over here. I mean, I had a great dealer partner of ours, a Honda store, saying, hey, I think it would be really great if we could digitize the F&I process so that someone can come in, figure out what car they want, and we can actually send them home, and they can make their selections with proper information at home without the pressure of someone trying to sell them. Because, after all, people want to buy, they don't want to be sold. Right. So we saw all sorts of things, and there's tons of studies out there that'll say that the self-guided process, as long as there's proper information, people can make a good decision, that they're more likely to increase their basket of goods, the pieces that they're going to add on, whatever the case, if they're doing it on their own. Right. If they're taking their time and they can do so thoughtfully without pressure. So, maybe we need to be more focused on, okay, it's not about I can do the whole transaction online. It's about I can help you with whatever part you want to do in store or online. At the same time, chatting with a friend of mine who's in Arizona, and he's running six stores down there. And the conversations with folks are, hey, we can take care of this online if you want. We can go through this whole process. Oh, no, I'll just come down to the store. That's okay. And their preference in their market for most of their stores, and they did 20% less business. Arizona's seeing about a 25% decrease. They're doing about a 20% decrease in total business.
Is that sales or service or total?
That's that's new and used sales combined, not service. And they're doing, frankly, quite well. So in that regard, the consumer that wants to come down and do that transaction in person, because frankly speaking, there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that people will still want to do in person. And it all depends on who created the survey that's going to tell you that they actually want to do it online, right? Was the survey facilitated by someone who helps transactions online, or was the survey facilitated by some sort of body that didn't really have a dollar in the game? They were just actually collecting legitimate information.
Well, I think that's what it is. As an industry, we have to do that. Sorry, Stephen, you want to add to that?
I was going to just say, I think Ian makes a good point. It's providing what the customer wants and figuring out how do you build technology and process around that, because instead of like, this is how we do things, right? And I think of myself, like 4 years ago, I bought a used Mini Cooper from a dealership that's, you know, in Texas, everything's far away. It was like,
I'm sorry you bought a used Mini Cooper.
it was fantastic, but it was literally one of the best buying experiences I had. I never talked to the guy. Email, text, showed up at my house with the paperwork. We agreed on everything. I signed it. I never drove the car, but I had owned a Mini before, so I knew I liked the brand. I liked the way it drove. But I agree. I think it's so everybody's so quick to jump on this. Like, we got to do it all digitally. We got to do everything. Well, I always tell people, like, it's the second most expensive thing people buy in their entire life. Like, you're not going to buy a house online, right? Like, you want to look, feel, where's my couch? The same thing with most people is the car, right? Jason, the Armada. You would not have bought it thinking, is it going to fit in my garage? Right? Like, I remember back in the day when the what's the Expedition or the Ford, the biggest Ford they made. I remember renting one time.
Yeah, the Excursion.
Little teeny kids, and we were going to take a road trip. I bring it home from Hertz, and it's this far out of my garage. I'm like, well, how do people buy, right? But had I just bought that, I'd have been like, great, honey, I got good news. We got this big car. Better news, we're buying a new house because I can't fit it in our garage, right? Like, I still think there is process that consumers are going to be involved in and want to do it differently. And there may be people like me who are like, sure, I know what I want. I'll buy it all online. I don't ever want to talk to anybody. But to your point, I think it really depends on the marketplace and being ready and willing as a dealership to do it that way, right?
Well, and I think that's the key is the willingness. Right? Like, I mean, I don't think we can't have one sales process. We can't even have 2 or 3 different sales processes. I mean, I would literally be sitting down right now, writing out a playbook that probably included 17, 20 different sales processes, depending on who the individual is and how they wanted to continue to proceed with the sales process. And that's actually just sales. I probably write 4 or 5 different service processes right now based on how the customer feels comfortable in bringing in their vehicle or not bringing in their vehicle. And I would have these different things laid out. I think that's just, I think at the core of our conversation is what we're talking about here is that we do need to sit down. We need to rewrite the playbook, or we need to add, another 10 to 15 plays that we've never had before. Mm-hmm. Guys, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our conversation today. Boy, that time went fast. That was a lot of fun.
Adaptability, right?
Oh, sorry. What was that, Ian?
Flexibility and adaptability, right? You need to, and I think that's one of the most difficult things for our dealer partners is that the team members that they are able to put on the floor, in many cases, have such a great need for a very clear process to be able to follow step by step, and don't necessarily have the nuanced skill to know when they need to shift gears, when they need to go outside of that process. And in many cases, we don't. As leaders, we don't want to give them the flexibility because we're concerned that they'll fall so far outside of it. And it's really that with great power comes great responsibility idea, right? If we're going to give them that,
I love the fact you just quoted Spider-Man. You rock.
If we're going to give them that ability, we're talking origin stories off the top. I mean, come on. If we're going to give them that, we have to probably, frankly speaking, train them that much more to know when they can shift and that it's okay, and empower them to do that too. But I understand the hurdles. I appreciate the hurdles that exist at the store level in that. And is technology going to provide those answers in part, but not as a whole?
It's going to assist.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's what we're talking about here. It's empowering someone with the flexibility to let the customer steer the direction that they want to go in, and it's, I see us in the new norm being more of a supporting role, not necessarily like come follow me role. It's like, I just feel like I feel like I need to see the customer and the dealership side by side through the process versus the customer behind the dealer, and the dealer's like, come on, follow me, let's go, we're going this way, right? Guys, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our time today, and I know we could probably easily jam for another hour here, so I want to thank you guys for taking the time to do this with me. But before we leave, I get to ask my favorite question of the day. All right. I know you guys had some time to think about this. So this is your opportunity to rant as heavy or light as you want. All right. And Stephen, I'm going to start with you. Stephen, what is pissing you off?
Ooh, I've been thinking about this. I think the constant communication from every person I've ever maybe gone on their webpage in the past 30 years, telling me how safe they're going to make me be through the COVID-19.
Every single person you ever gave an email to?
Yeah. The two that are probably like the biggest ones in my life, my landlord and my the company that has my car loan, have not sent me one of those. And I think that's very ironic. I'm like, wait, everybody else who I could care less whether they are going to help me out through this is emailing me. But I think that's my big, which isn't a real big one in life.
No, I think it's a good one, though.
Yeah,
I think the communication, or sometimes a lack of communication, all right, I agree with that. All right, Ian, you're up. What is pissing Ian Cruickshank off?
I'll tell you what's pissing me off. People's different interpretations of shelter in place or social distance or social isolation, and making the decisions that they're making that are not conscious of the population as a whole, but conscious only of their own wants, desires, personal needs, personal affliction, whatever. It is mind-blowing to me to go into an environment like the grocery store. All right, we go into the grocery store, we're all lined up, everybody's, there's a predetermined spacing. You go into the grocery store, all bets are off. You go over and you're trying to reach for eggs or milk, or in my case soy milk or whatever it is, and you're grabbing this stuff, and you've got 3 or 4 people bearing down on you. I'm like, whoa, like, come on, let's keep the same distance that we're told to keep inside the premise. And if you don't have to be here, don't be here. If you don't have to, like, for us, we've been having we've had a couple socials on the driveway where we've got our 2 friends, another couple at the end of the driveway, and we've got a fire pit in the middle of the driveway, and my wife and I at this end of the driveway, right? So we've got not only do we have distance, we've got this raging fire in between us to burn everything possible. Because like there's no way, and everybody's in a different situation, right? Like there's so many people, like the more youthful folks that are out there thinking, I'm not going to be affected. And then you've got folks that are thinking, okay, well, I can't leave my house because I'm a senior. Our neighbors across the street, we've been getting groceries for them and helping them out. And, they're not willing to leave the home at all. So let's just remember, let's support each other. Let's bring that humanity back into our decision-making at every turn. So anyone watching this podcast and everyone, considering the importance of this distancing, just, think twice before considering your own needs and your own distance, and think of those that are immune deficient and that need a little more separation.
Well said, Ian. I think that was one of the best rants we've had so far. Thank you for doing so. Hey guys, but before we end our session today, for everyone out there that's listening and watching right now and would love to connect with you gentlemen and just either socially or through your company website, learn more about what you guys do or follow along with your journey, what is the best way to do so? Stephen, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I would say if you want to go to RecallRabbit.com or email me, Stephen, it's STEPHEN at RecallRabbit. Love to connect with anybody. Awesome. Whether it's about recalls or not, anything somebody wants to reach out to me about.
You guys heard it. Just call Stephen. You can ask anything. Call me. Anything.
Yeah.
Ian, for yourself, what is the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, for us, to learn about our organization, leadboxhq.com. So LEADBOXHQ.com. You can check that out. But for me personally, finding me on LinkedIn is likely the best way to go. Easy to connect with me there. Response time can sometimes be a little bit slower, but I do get to it, as Jason personally knows. And it's Ian, Cruick, as you can see down in the bottom corner, SHANK. And it's just that, if you want to just do the linkedin.ca/ and my full name, you'll get it right away. Or you can search there. But frankly, through the website, and my email address, easy enough, is just Ian at .com, and it's not Leadbox, as some people outside the industry think sometimes. It's Leadbox.
That's awesome. Hey guys, thanks again for taking the time to jam with me. You guys have an awesome day.
Thank you,
too.
Jason.
Thanks guys. See ya.
I know.